we want Bitcoin to be volatile. Like things that are, when it's volatile, like our volatility is 100, we're the most volatile stock in the S&P index. That makes us the most desirable stock for a trader. If the volatility goes away, then it's probably not good for the equity. And our general strategy is just keep acquiring Bitcoin, never sell the Bitcoin, and then we will adjust our various capital markets activities. If we get too delevered, we'll sell more levered instruments, fixed income instruments. And if we get too levered, we will delever. And if we feel that the capital markets aren't really favorable to sell any securities, we'll just stop and wait. Because if I did nothing right now, if we did nothing, we have a $45 billion company growing 60% a year. Which is better than every other company in the world, in my opinion. Find me another $45 billion company growing 60% a year by doing nothing, right? So we have a good option to do nothing. Our company's stock we've been growing 95% a year, right? To our equity shareholders. And the most sophisticated thing we do is a very delicate balancing in order to optimize the interest of every stakeholder. I mean, every creditor, the bondholders. We in essence have 6 different convertible bonds, a preferred stock, and the equity. And we're content. I will say we are very much thinking about those 8 classes of security holders. Like those things keep me up at night. I will say for the record, I don't worry much about people that are trading out of the money 30-day call options. So if you're a guy that's trading 30-day call options, with 20x leverage, we are not partners. I might do something that undermines your short dated option position. Our goal is over the long term to create the most shareholder value we can for the common stock, but to treat every other class of security holder with respect and be very, very transparent and give them exactly what we promised to give them in the most responsible way.
When you die, I don't think you're going to say, I wish it brought my shareholders more value. So what is your goal in all this, and what will ultimately bring you happiness, Michael?
Bitcoin is an ideology that spawned a protocol that created an asset that circulates on a network. The ideology is sovereignty, sound money, freedom and property rights, right? Dignity of the human spirit, ownership of your life force, economic sovereignty and immortality, right? That's the ideology of Bitcoin, right? And Satoshi gave us that. And so, if I were to boil down my mission is I want to spread the ideology of sound money, sovereignty, economic freedom, economic immortality, right? What if I told you you could live forever? That's the basis of every religion, isn't it? Well, I'm not going to give you that promise. That's been done, and there are other people more qualified than me to talk to you about immortal life. But I think what Satoshi is offering us is economic immortality. You may not live forever, but your economic energy will live forever. And if your capital lives forever, maybe that means your ideas live forever, right? Because if I've got an asset that'll last 10,000 years, I can capitalize an AI in cyberspace, whatever, and digital Saylor can spout, things for 10,000 years. What is it you believe in? What is your value, right? And if you have a value, right, if your value is you want to preserve a park forever with money, so you leave your money to an AI capitalized by Bitcoin, and the park gets preserved forever. Maybe you get to see your ideas preserved forever. And you know what? If you don't have a single idea, like maybe digital Saylor is arrogant and the park will come and go, then you have the option to convert as much wealth as you can into Bitcoin, like Satoshi did, 1 million coin, and burn the key. And so should you raise 1 million, 1 billion, 1 trillion, or whatever, and if you burn the key, you will have made an economic contribution pro rata to everyone else in the Bitcoin network forever. You will have empowered everybody else. Everybody with 1 Satoshi will be that much richer, and you will have made that contribution. And that strikes me as being a much more ethically proper, ethically sound form of charity. Like you've got centralized charity. I give the money to a charity run by someone that may spend it the way I want. But let me tell you, if you leave your money to a charity 100 years after you're dead, they'll spend it on something you wouldn't want them to spend it on. It'll be corrupted, right? You can figure that out. That's true. So how about decentralized charity, which is you'll just leave your money to the human race, and everybody that believes what I believe, right? I believe in Satoshi and his vision, sovereignty, property rights, freedom, economic empowerment, economic immortality. I believe nobody should be able to steal your money. I believe you should get to keep it. And so if I believe that and I burn those keys, then I have made everybody in the network that much richer and more powerful forever. And they have the option to do the same, or maybe they'll use that power for good in a way that they deem to be appropriate. And you're like, well, who'd you give the most power to? I gave the most power to the person that believed the most what I believe, right? I mean, everybody has the choice to join the network with $1, $100, $1 million, $1 billion, or $1 trillion, right? So everybody gets to join, and we're all in it together from now to eternity. So yeah, that's my legacy.
I know you're buying forever, but maybe you can give folks a timeline that you expect to issue the full 21 billion of Strike ATM, considering you went through 17 billion of the 21 billion in 5 months, and when the plan was 3 years. And are you expecting to issue any more convertible bonds by the end of the quarter?
If you were to go to business school, I would say you could save your time, because I can boil business school down to the following phrase: keep your options open, right? The entire essence of business is keep your options open, right? Those 4 words. So you're asking me to commit the cardinal sin in business, which is close off all my options, which would be foolish. I would say moronically insane and stupid. So no, I would never, ever commit to doing something. What I would say is the way we run the company is we create the most optionality as possible. We could sell $21 billion worth of Strike next week. If the demand was there under the right terms, we could sell it never. We could sell it over 3 years. We could sell it over 1 year. And the presumption that I know when I'm going to sell it, it's a mistake. Here's the mistake. Because generally you can sell a certain amount of securities in a time frame. I could sell $1 billion of equity tomorrow, but at what price? And so if you specify the time frame and the size, you have to give up the third variable, which is the price. And so if I wanted to tank the stock, I could make the commitment. So making the commitment is really dereliction of duty, because you're undermining the interest of your own shareholders and you're undermining your negotiating position. So if we look at our $21 billion ATM for equity, we announced that October 30th. We had the option to take 3 years. Well, what couldn't we predict? Well, we can't predict how enthusiastic the equity capital markets will be. We can't predict who's going to win the election. We can't predict how enthusiastic the market will be after the election. And so we created the option to sell a lot of equity in a hurry. What happened was a parade of wonderful developments. The markets rallied, Bitcoin rallied, we were able to sell $15 billion of equity with the stock price and the premium strengthening every single day. But we didn't know that on October 30th. Now, if you were to say, well, you should have promised to do it in 36 months, and you should have done it every day for 36 months, well, you'd be a fool, because you had a chance to basically to generate a $10 billion gain with no risk in 4 weeks. And so if I said, I'll give you $10 billion, no risk in the next 4 weeks, or you can take 3 years and maybe in the third year, you'll get a $5 billion gain, but that way you won't have surprised anybody. Well, that's stupid, right? So if someone offers you $15 billion tomorrow and you're going to make $10 billion on the trade, take the money. That's my advice to you. But if you promise to do it tomorrow, the stock will go to $1 because everybody will front run you, and then you can't do it. So with all of these things, the key is we create optionality. If I were to promise you, guarantee that we're going to issue a certain amount of convertible bonds this year, I could do it, but at what price to my shareholders? It would probably be dilutive. So what you have to do is you have to open up your options. You have to be very nimble. Every day we evaluate the market. There are certain days when the Bitcoin markets are favorable. Sometimes the equity market is favorable. Sometimes the convert market is favorable. By the way, Christine, there are weeks where we could sell $1 billion of a convertible bond with a 4-year tenor, but not with a 6-year tenor. Like the market to sell 4-year bonds is open, and you can do that for 0 coupon, and the market for a 5 or a 6 or a 7-year bond is slammed shut in your face, and you can't do it. Or you can do this, it's going to cost you 10%, or you can do that and it's free. So the real key is the capital markets are multidimensional. Like I'll give you one more metaphor. This is what you learn if you're a nautical. If you ever sailed a sailboat or cruised in a yacht, it's like you get up in the morning and you say, I'm really excited. I want to go to the Bahamas. It's only 3 hours away. If the wind is blowing in one direction, if it's blowing, from the south to the north, the Gulf Stream lays down like a mirrored glass, and you can go across it and you wouldn't even notice it. And you'll be there in 3 hours, sipping your pina colada, quite happy. If the wind changes direction and it's blowing from the north to the south, you get a standing wave against the Gulf Stream. You're going to have 10 or 20 foot seas. If you get there, you'll get there with broken arms. Someone will have fallen off the ship. And the point is, if the wind changes direction, and if you're smart, you're not going. And if you're a fool, it's like the scene in The Wolf of Wall Street where the guy takes his yacht out in the middle of a mistral and the ship sinks. It's like, if you have a strong ego and you've decided you absolutely must do something, but the winds and the capital markets change direction, it's not going to turn out well. And humility is, you chart your path based upon prevailing winds and currents. And that's why, the naval greeting or farewell is fair winds and following seas, right? There's a direction to go. You go that direction. And if you go that direction, it's going to be a lovely time and you're going to have extraordinary success. But when your ego gets in the way and you make some plan and you declare you're going to do it come hell or high water, you're going to slam into a wall of water in Mother Nature, and it's just not going to work. And so I don't give that kind of guidance because it's just unwise to do it. It would be not in the best interest of my shareholders or stakeholders. And that's not the way to run a business, right?